Dividend investors, bonjour. Mike Yuhu here, founder of Dividend Stocks Rocks, passionate investor. Today I have a treat for you guys. I have met with Tracy Ma. She have reached fire in her 30s and she did that with real estate investment. So I've done a two-part special interview, first guest on that YouTube channel. So I hope that you will enjoy it. She shared the same level of passion about investing in real estate, so it will be a very fun discussion. So the first part is how she reached fire and how she started into real estate investing. Let's go see that. So, Tracy, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. You're actually my first guest, so I'm a little bit nervous about that. Usually I do my stuff with Veronique, and she's the one asking questions, and this time I'm going to ask you questions. So, um, what I found interesting about your story is, and the chat that we had offline was that we kind of share the same passion and the same energy. And we also have another thing in common, which is that at the age of 35, you decided to quit your job and follow your own path just because you didn't want to live without any regrets. And I kind of like share that similar shared point of view. And I wanted to start there for your journey. So I would like to know how, like, what the life was look like when you were like 34, like before quitting your job, and what does it look like right now?
Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited. Okay. Wow, what was life like at 34? So you imagine my life traveling a lot. I was traveling up north to Yellowknife 30% of the time while my kids were just like a few years old. So I was trying to grow my real estate portfolio. I was managing a $1 billion project. My office was going through reorganization. We were trying to set up this major project office, and I was just getting like overwhelmed. I felt like everything I worked on that project was like, uh, you know, what's that feeling when you go 2 steps forward and then you get 4 steps back? That's how I felt
Yeah.
with those few years working there. I started getting tension headaches. And eventually my health went south. You know that feeling when you slip on a staircase?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I started getting panic attacks
Whoa.
and I was always on the go. I never stopped to like think, is this really what I want? And I think my body was just telling me something. And I was supposed to go for an immediate promotion. And there was this like very clear career path to like executive level, but that was really actually stressing me out. I didn't want that life. It was like, it was not in my vision. So at night, I was just really looking at ways to grow my real estate portfolio, buy my stocks. And then I was averaging like one property a year for the first 10 years of doing this. So fast forward, it's like night and day. I've taken 4 sabbaticals over the last 7 years. I've taken 2 years off since I left engineering. I feel like I have full control of my life where if I decide I want to go snowboarding, I'm going to go snowboarding. That's like that's like one of my top priorities is like whenever conditions are good, I'm going snowboarding. So I could take Mondays, Fridays, Wednesdays off and pick up my kids, just little things like that. And I feel so free. And I feel like I have my freedom back, which is like super important to me. And I wake up actually really excited and just looking forward to every single day because it's my vision.
That's amazing. That's truly amazing. Um, you mentioned you have kids. You have a husband as well, I guess. So is he fired as well, or is he still working? And how do you manage being like, and I hate the word retired, but like living on your own terms, but at the same time, like how like do kids and their like parents from their friends, they look like, oh, okay, so Tracy's like in and out all the time and she goes snowboarding. It's like, how do you manage that? And is your husband still working today?
So I would say, what's interesting is that when we went into this real estate investing journey and trying to grow passive income, because that was like a dream, is actually my husband's dream. Interestingly enough, he was really in his dead end in his career at that time, and so I was like actually really happy in engineering, but is later on that we switched. But like he ended up pivoting and found a new career path, and he's like really loving it. So he has no desire to leave. I keep bugging him. I'm like, so when are you going to take it easy? When are you going to actually maybe venture into becoming consultant, which means like leaving your government position? And he's like, he has no intentions whatsoever. He has no intentions to stop. And I can totally resonate. So for me, like leaving my engineering position was obviously one of the most scariest decisions to make, because you're giving up like golden handcuffs, as they call it,
Yeah.
and this very clear career path. But I read this book called it was like master I think it's by Tony Robbins, Money
Master your
Master the
money,
Game.
right?
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. I really screwed that up. And one of the most striking parts was like he had 5 levels of financial well-being, which is financial security, financial vitality, financial independence, financial freedom, and absolute financial freedom. So when you break it into stages, although like there's no way at 35 I was replacing my salary by investing in real estate, I realized that you don't need to reach absolute financial freedom to leave and pivot. It's actually, as you break it down its stages, is like way more achievable. So that's when I started realizing I need to live life on my terms. And I already achieved like level 1 and 2, so which gave me the courage to leave engineering and live life fully like you do. And although my spouse is not fired, it's just that he just has no intentions to, even though I bug him about it. So I'm the same way. I actually don't like the word retire early, because I don't think I will ever retire, because I feel like I'm always working on the next project or the next project. It's like, there's so many things in life. I want to live to 100. So I got,
Yeah,
and in
plenty
order,
of years to go.
you got years, and I read these books. If you stop working or live like working on something purposeful, you're going to die early. So I don't want to die early. I want to see my next 3 generations of my family. So this is my ambition,
Yeah,
just to live longer.
I totally agree with you. My editor for my newsletter is past 75, and we had like he's been working with us for several years, and I was asking him like, do you think at one point you're going to stop? Because I would need to know, and he's like, no way, because I want to keep my brain working, as you said, and I don't want, like, I want to live older, and if I just sit down and watch TV, well, I'm gonna pass away within the next 3 months. So back to your story, you were on a amazing career path as an engineer, and then at one point you reached that like eye-opening, saying, you know what, my buddy's telling me to leave, to stop and to change my things. Have you stop completely right away, or did you build a safety net, or how did that transition went from the point where I'm making a lot of money as an engineer, I live in my suitcase and I don't feel good about it, but then like you still have a mortgage to pay and stuff like that. So how did you afford to actually quit your job, and what's your main source of income today? Is it your portfolio or your real estate portfolio?
For sure. So it still comes back to the Tony Robbins. It's a big mindset shift where you don't have, it's not like either you have the money or you don't have the money. Actually, if you break it up into those 5 steps, you start realizing, okay, what's your minimum expenses? And I realized, like, as we were building our real estate portfolio, we're gaining enough cash flow that we were living mortgage free. Like, we had very little expenses, honestly. We live a really simple life. That's the thing. And all that time, I've also been a fairly good with saving money. It's just in my nature. I don't know if it's being a typical Asian person that just like loves saving money or whatever, but I always want to live like minimally. So I've always found a way to basically not pay for my rent in a way. Like I'd always have a roommate that would pay, and I'd just try to live on very low expenses, because I learned it the hard way. I actually, when I was university, I lost my scholarship to engineering, and it's because I couldn't keep up an A average. And at that time, that was brutal, because I'm from a first generation immigrant family, which meant I didn't have any money. Like my parents did not have any money. So I worked really hard. I had 2 other jobs while I was working as like going to school, and that made me realize like either I work till I die really hard, or I learned to be very good with my money. That was kind of like one or the other. So I learned that in university and carried out throughout my life. So I've always been living well below my means. So we saved up enough rental cash flow so that it is now my primary source of income to pay continuously for my mortgage expenses. And I've upgraded now to a 6-bedroom house. So you can see that my mortgage payments have gone bigger, but it's
So you
kind
need
of
a
like this.
larger estate portfolio now.
Yeah, I need to live mortgage free. So I just make sure that if my cash flow increases, I can afford a bigger house. That's like my mindset shifts. It's a bit of a, and I still do house hacking where you have someone else helping pay off your mortgage. And so my other sources of income being my dividend income, selling options, my business income, my investments, those are constantly reinvested back into the
Mhm.
portfolio. And I might sporadically use it to pay for vacation, fun expenses. And obviously, I do always pay for actually my kids' expenses. And that's pretty much it. Because if you talk to my husband, he's always like, it's like he doesn't see my accounts. My accounts are completely separated. It's purposely done. I just like, yeah. So I live a
Keeping a
pretty
little bit of
simple life.
secret here, so that's good.
Yeah, he has no idea. He has no idea.
So when you started investing in real estate, at first, obviously, you don't have a bunch of cash down. And I read on your website that you started doing joint venture. So can you tell me a little bit how it works and if it went well or not in your case? Like what are the pros and cons? And basically how can you start investing in joint venture when you're about to buy a rental property?
So definitely joint ventures is a great way to scale your rental portfolio. Yes, I did do a few joint ventures, but in hindsight, I wish I did choose more wisely because it's getting into a new relationship. Like just think of it as a new relationship, like you're about to get married. You're going to be in a very, very long-term contract and you have to split the bills. That's how it works. So I would say that really ask yourself if you're going into a joint venture, if that person that you're going to join um, is going to fulfill what you want out of this person. Is this a person that you could talk to when bad stuff happens, or if there's a roof replacement, that's like a lot of money, you split all the
Mhm.
bills. So I after venturing after like I think my first or second, I realized that I just knew who I wanted. So I was looking for silent money partners. So essentially my husband, I would do all the work, do all the rentals, put in a lot of sweat equity. Because in real estate investing, you either come up with a ton of cash to go buy a rental property, or you put in a lot of work, right? It's like a lot of work if you have very little money. So I put in a ton of sweat equity back then. And my husband and I would actually do the renovations,
Okay.
at night. So then what happens is then as you choose a property, the property cash flows, you split it between the partners and the profits are split once sold. So I think the best JV is actually, and interestingly enough, within my family, because they
Okay.
knew they didn't want to do anything at all. And they just wanted to give me the money, and then I have to go find the tenants, find the property, make sure it's in the right location, right neighborhood, do the right renos, make sure it also is profitable and cash flowing. So this is a long-term relationship, and this is the relationship that's been the best deal with me. Is with actually one of them was with my brother, and he. Um, it turns out a little bit later, he saw as I was building my real estate portfolio and putting a lot of sweat equity, he did the same. And with one of his condos, he asked me for the money. And that was probably the easiest
Huh.
deal I've ever done. I finally had enough money to like, okay, go buy your condo. You put in all the sweat equity. And he had a toilet that's actually wrapped in gold foil. That's the
Whoa.
type of condo he purchased. It was such a fixer upper. Like I can't imagine wallpaper around a toilet bowl. So that's the type of condo he got into, and I gave him the money, and it was the best deal ever because it's like he did all the work, and I just like, split the profits and the cash flow and everything. So I would say recommending for people, like the pros is like it's a great way to buy another rental, like more than one a year. You know, if you're going for 2 or 3 rentals in a year, this is a great way to scale really fast. The cons is like it is the most expensive way to scale your rental property portfolio
Mhm.
because you're giving up 50% of your equity, right? And you're giving up ownership of the property. So I would say rather than splitting up the profits, you may just want to come up with the down payment, like save up, and then even go with if you have a hard time qualifying for the best mortgage rates, because it may be really hard as you scale your rental property portfolio. It's actually cheaper to go with a higher interest rate mortgage than it is to split the profits, right? And the cash flow of the property. But of course, if you have full control, you also have full control of the expenses that comes up. So you gotta think that's one of the big cons. The pros, you get to split up the bills.
So maybe a good way to start, but eventually as you grow up, you want to be your own partner and you don't want to like split that profit.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's a great strategy if you're looking for quick flips. Like if you're needing to the money to be recirculated every single time, you need to close on a deal every 3-4 months. I think JVs are the best because that your no bank is going to just give you that much
mhm.
money every 3-4 months. So I think when you're flipping type of, which is not long-term real estate investing, then that's a great way is doing JVs. But otherwise, if you want to have a long-term property, it's going to be hard because your partner may want to get out of the deal, in less than 5 years. Even though you signed a contract, they still may not keep it. So then you're losing your assets.
And that makes yeah, that that makes a great deal turn sour, right? uh
Yeah, exactly.
I've noticed that you tend to buy more like single units or condos versus having like a building with 3, 4, 5, 6 doors. Is there a particular reason? Have you changed throughout the years, or like what's the difference between buying like that single unit condo versus multiple doors?
Well, interesting enough, I learned it from the hard way. So my second property was a multiplex. It was actually a 3 unit, a house converted into a triplex. And I thought, yes, this is what the books tell you. The more units, it just makes mathematically sense. You're going to have, if one goes vacant, it doesn't matter. Your 2 other units are still paying the mortgage. The unfortunate part is that, like, as a busy professional at that time, having an engineering career, traveling up north, when you have more tenants, it's like having more children. It comes exactly like that. So you have 3 units each. I had like I think 8 tenants in that one
Wow.
building. And because I didn't have, the money to even pay for a property manager at that time, it was cash flowing, but I was just trying to save up to buy my next rental. I became the property manager. Like my husband and I managed that property. So pregnant with twins at that time, and then after $90,000 of water damage in that unit
Whoa.
and cops coming in, I realized like multiplexes are just not for me. And I think that even to this day, I do like multiplexes, but I just think like of what life you have to think what life you want to live. And if you can find a really, really good property manager, then that's a great way to go. But for most people who are starting out in the real estate investing journey, you're probably going to learn the ropes as the property manager. So you get to learn the ropes for the first few rentals. So a multiplex is a lot more work. So, but I think the great way of doing it is if you could compromise and live in the multiplex,
Hmm.
then maybe that might be like house hacking. That might be a great way to compromise. And as long as you're cool to your neighbors, right?
Yeah, and
So,
probably that
yeah.
you won't have to call the police if you're living in the apartment.
Yeah, I'm not saying all multiplexes are like that. I just say more tenants is like more children. Some of
Yeah.
your children, I don't know. I don't know that you have to really attract the right tenants. So that's why I kept it simple. I kept it with because it worked out at that time. Townhomes, semi-detached condos. It worked out numbers wise, and it worked with my lifestyle.
And in terms of profitability, is it harder to get it profitable if you have like a single unit because you only have like one tenant paying the rent? Do you need to put like additional cash down, or is there like other ways that you can make it profitable as if you have like a triplex? Well, obviously you have three tenants. Chances are if it's all occupied, it will be easier in terms of cash flow.
So for sure, a multiplex is much easier for cash flow. What I really stress is when you go buy a semi-detached or townhome or condo, you got to think, what value can you add? It's not what you don't make money when you just buy it turnkey, like off of a blueprint, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's what value you can add to it. So for example, if I bought a home, it was actually fairly decently valued, but I also realized at that time the person selling it was really wanting to get out, like wanting to sell. So you need to know like how how are they really wanting to sell? And then I also noticed that it's a starter home. It's like a 2-bedroom home. And so starter homes tend to actually appreciate a lot faster than, say, a multiplex, because a multiplex is much more of a business game. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the numbers crunch out from the beginning, meaning cash flows, and then it's worth this much. Versus a home has a lot more emotion to it. Same with a condo, same with a townhome. So I go with that emotional, I guess, I'm always thinking of the exit strategy. If I'm going to exit out, how easy is it to exit out of a multiplex versus a condo? And so a starter home is always so much easier to exit out. And that's really golden in real estate because it's not liquid. And then,
Yeah.
the thing to think about how to make money is how much value you can add. So I buy fixer uppers. They're not super fixer uppers. They're like just cosmetic changes that, paint, change of carpets, little quick kitchen renos. And then you really force appreciate the property, and you actually force the rent to go up because it's now no longer this ugly looking 2-bedroom house. It's like a very
It's a
nice,
palace.
a palace, especially for like, I mean, I've rented for a long time. I would love a home that if someone rented that home to me. So it's just like, it's a perspective thing. So that's you can cash flow. It's just, you have to add more value to it in the beginning,
That's
because you
great.
make money when you buy.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Mhm.
And there's probably like a larger market when you want to sell as well, because it's a lot easier to sell a single unit than to sell like a multi-million dollar property as with 10 doors.
Yes, for sure.
All right. So that was the first part with the interview of Tracy Ma. I hope that you have enjoyed it. There are like three things that I want to stretch here that I really appreciated from part one of this interview. The first one was that life is short, and if you don't like what you do, stop doing it. Do what you want in life, not what you're supposed to. It's great to have a huge job with a pension and security, but if you wake up and you feel like you're gonna vomit, that's not worth it. So find a place where you're gonna be happy. The second thing is partner up, either with your spouse or with a brother, a sister, your parents. But when you have a project, it's great to not feel alone, to be able to talk with someone, to share the bills, but also share the problems and share the victories. I think that it's a great way. I've started my business with my partner. Most of my projects are with my long-term partner, my wife, and I feel just better when I start something knowing that I do it side by side with someone else. Finally, think outside the box. When I thought of interviewing Tracy Ma, I knew that we were going to talk about real estate, but I didn't know that it was going to be a lot about buying like single doors or townhouse. And the point that she brought about the emotion, emotion drive prices. If you really want something because you fall in love with it, because you have a craving, you're going to be willing to pay a lot higher price than if it's just a transactional business transaction. So in the part two, next week, we're going to go step by step on how you buy a property, what you should analyze, all those key points, key metrics that you should consider before making your first step into real estate investment. So you don't want to miss that. Make sure that you like this channel, subscribe to the channel as well to make sure that you do not miss the next video. And you can also find Tracy Ma at Financial Nirvana Mama. Don't worry, the link is right below in the link description. You're going to get access to a very cool booklet about how to start your journey into real estate investment. And she's a cool person to follow. She shared that level of passion that I have, and you're just going to have like so much fun with Tracy as well. So don't forget, as usual, to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and stay invested until the next video. Cheers, guys.